going, actually, let's do this.
What's right here?
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome to this year's Team Jordan Live panel. I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. When they were planning the convention and they were coming up with things, I looked at it and they asked me, they said, Jason, what do you want to do this year? You know, what sort of panels are you interested in doing? And I said, well, I'd like to do, these things and these things. Oh, and I definitely want to, do the Team Jordan panel. I like to moderate that. They go, yeah, well, we're not sure if Harry and the crew want to do that. And I'm like, well, I think they should absolutely do it because I'd like to interview them again. So here we are. And you all know these people up here. They are the icons and titans of our fandom. They are beloved eternal members. Real quick. Running down here to my near side, my right is Wilson Grooms. So Wilson, of course, is, as he likes to style himself, as the fourth brother of three.
I didn't do that, Jim.
Jim did that, and I like that because most of us, of course, know him as Robert Jordan, and but today we're going to talk about Jim. That's kind of my focus of these questions. I want to talk about Jim. But so Wilson Grooms is here, and Wilson. My experience with Wilson, that I communicate with him. He reached out to me when Jim was ill, and Wilson took over a lot of the blogging on Jim's behalf in that final year, 6 months and year. And you integrated yourself nicely into our community, and have been family ever since. And the first time I met him, it was like he grabbed me, as he does every year, in this huge, big, crushing, loving hug, and I look forward to that JordanCon hug every year. To his right, of course, good. To his right, of course, is the lovely Harriet McDougall. So she, you don't even introduce her, but it is a privilege, as always, to have you here. Thank you again for being here, as you are every year.
Well, is this on?
Yes.
I'm delighted to be here.
To your right, with the ever-evolving hair, yay! I know, right? Maria Simmons, so the walking encyclopedia of Wheel of Time knowledge. So who helped and was instrumental, of course, in writing the actual physical Wheel of Time companion. So thank you for being here again, Maria. And my dear friend,
ever-changing hair.
Ever-changing hair. It's a little bit longer than last year, just maybe a little bit. So, Alan Romanchuk, who is sometimes known as the Time Lord of the Wheel of Time. He was had the all-important task of keeping the timeline and continuity straight.
And gave up.
And that's just where he just said, Brandon, just have Rand step outside time, and we're just going to do that. So, thank you for being here, Alan. All right, so. I'm going to ask a few questions and then start, but you guys please start thinking of your own question. I really want to give you guys the chance to, to ask me up here. I know you're probably not thrilled with me doing it, but I have to. It's my job as being a Wheel of Time journalist. I have to do this because that's what everyone wants to know is what is the latest with the TV show and Sony and all that. Harriet, I know. We kind of know your answer, but we would love a sentence rather than a word.
The latest is an enormous pool of silence. Sony, I have been told, has made a deal with a distributing thing. A few years ago I'd have said a network, now it's a
platform.
A streamer is likely, much more likely than a network. I don't know who, they haven't told me. At one point I said, what is going on? Been silent for so long. Is this a buy and bury? Which is when you buy something to keep it from being aired, like what's her name's story in the National Enquirer? And I'm sure that is not true. That there's a very strong contract, but it's still having dotted and I's crossed. The other way around, I hope it's whichever is better for us. And that's all I can tell you, is that I was told they love the script. I didn't even know there was a script. But as I told you last year, Rafe Jacunski is the showrunner, and thus effectively in creative control. And I think Rafe is a terrific person to have in place. And I assume, perhaps wrongly, that if the script exists, he wrote it. That's all.
Thank you very much. That's great. Have you had a chance to talk to Rafe at all?
Oh, just a little bit. Rafe is very kind to me and answers my questions, but I'm really careful not to put him in a bind.
So, and this is open, on the same topic, but open to everyone here. I'm not asking for any sort of specifics, but I'm curious, like, what would you see would be some of the, what would you, if they did make this into a TV show, right, which I understand is your goal, you say, what do you think would be a sign of success? I mean, not financial, but like, what would make it a successful show? And that's open to anyone.
If it's a good.
Season 2.
I don't think I can improve on that. But apparently season 1 is guaranteed. It's no nonsense about a pilot. They put their full season.
Okay, that's interesting. Ellen Marie, do you have any thoughts? Like, what would you like to see in a show? I mean, you know, star-studded brand. What would you love to see in a TV show? When you clearly visualize your greatest, happy, like, this was perfect. What do you see?
I see something as true to the books as possible. That's pretty much it. I've never been one of the fantasy casters, and I just, hope they hit the right stride and everything works. I know it can't be exactly like the books. Nothing can be done that way and work, but I want it as close as possible, and I want to still love Matt.
That's true. It's a great point.
I have seen the perfect brand, except that to cast him would require a time machine because he's too old. And that's the redhead.
Sam Hewen.
That's not his name, but I've forgotten his name. He's the priest in a PBS series.
Grantchester.
Yeah, Grantchester, if any of you have ever seen him. The priest is red-headed and tall and has that wonderful red-headed skin, but he's about 30.
Someone hop on IMDb and let us know.
Yeah.
I second what everyone said, except I'd probably like to see more gratuitous sex. No, don't quote me on that.
Too late, you're on video, Alan.
It's only a few minutes into this panel. We're already devolving here. Well, we look forward to updates, and we look forward to what we hope for the show's success. We will be there watching, of course. I assume when this all goes down, we are hopeful for a great show. I wanted to, having gotten that bit of business that will appease the thousands of people on Facebook who daily ask what the latest status is that you can say. I wanted to, as I said earlier, I wanted to talk a little bit about Jim. And we've in the past years at these panels, we've talked about the writing process. We've talked about what it was like working with Brandon and crafting the encyclopedia, the companion and everything. But I wanted to kind of circle back to, the man himself and get each of your perspectives a bit on what was it like to, I'm sorry, here, you can maybe slide through and find your brand in there. Wow. There's someone. Well, yeah, but we want the name.
Norton.
Getting my eyes.
James Norton.
James Norton.
That's
But he's too old.
But he's too old. So a young James Norton. James Norton, if you were listening, just
Whoa.
yeah, that's him. You know, so
Pass him around.
pass him around. Yeah. So, Jim, we wanted to get like an idea of a bit of slice of life. What was it like to be around this man who, like, how many hours a day? It is probably when he was writing, let's say, Shadow Rising. Where was he? Like, he was in the carriage house writing. What was it like to live with a man who was writing 400,000 word novels every year? Harriet.
Well, he was the only person I'd ever known who was neither a day worker nor a night worker. He could work an 18-hour stretch, have a meal, go to sleep, wake up after 8 hours of sleep, work a 6 hours day. And it was very tricky because I never knew when he would know what meal. Would it be breakfast at 3 in the afternoon or what? And I finally said, honey, I can't do this. And I can never make the bed because I never know when it will be in it. I don't care which you choose, but could you please turn into a night worker or a day worker? And God bless him, he did. I don't think it was particularly easy for him, but it meant the house could run on him.
Harriet, is that why he ate stew for breakfast?
Yeah. Yeah, he had some very favorite dishes. One was Chef Boyardee's spaghetti. He learned to love that in Vietnam because he'd come home from runs in the helicopter and the mess hall would be closed, but there was a machine where you could put on corals or whatever and get some Chef Boyardee. Also, Mrs. Fearnough's Irish stew and Dinty Moore's beef stew. And these are, I never let the pantry run out of those.
Family note there, when we laid Jim to rest, a year later, I was with Harriet and we put a large, what in the Low Country is called the ledger stone on his grave. And it's 3 or 4 feet wide, 8 or 9 feet long. It's a rather large thing. So we neatly tucked a few of those items underneath the ledger stone with him. Some artifacts from his time in Vietnam. And I wanted to put a can of that Chef Boyardee underneath there, and she said it will cause the raccoons to come to you.
I have a patch of the grave of a friend's parents in the same graveyard because the raccoons dug into the brick footing under their ledger stone. The reason for the ledger stone is that this is a very country graveyard and people like to picnic on the stones, which make a wonderful, for the Japanese table. It's this.
I think we need to make a request to the people running the con suite next year to have those stews. So we can all have a toast the spoon of Chef Boyardee to Jim. And he would probably like that fondly. All right, so
He actually referred to it as his low habit. I have a low habit, and I said, what is it? He said, Chef Boyardee.
it suddenly makes me question the nature of all the stews that are in the series. When he's describing them in such great details, it really just, Chef Boyardee. So, Maria and Alan, were you around for when he had these off schedules, and would you come to work maybe and just never know if he was going to be at his desk during those hours?
No, by the time I started, he was on the day. He would come in, I would get there before he would, usually, when I started full time. And he would come in frequently singing and go to his desk. And when I left at 5, he would still be at his desk. And would stay there until Harriet summoned him for supper.
Well, he'd like to make the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, and that always bothered me at one level because, you know, the man's at his desk when I get there and still there, but he didn't break for lunch. And that just really bothered me at one level, that was not a healthy thing to be doing. And, you know, that's all I can say about that, but it's, his mind was driving his body beyond probably what it should have been taking.
And also he would forget to drink water. So it was my job to fill a pitcher every morning and take it down. And ever so often, especially if I had something else, you know, pour him a glass of water and make sure he drank it.
And he would get into character of whoever he was working at the time. You should tell him.
Yeah, he'd be coming into the kitchen in the evening, in time for the evening news and supper. And sometimes he'd come in, close the door behind him like this, and look around. Have you been writing a patent? He was writing one of the bad people, but then he'd come in, hiya, babe. He didn't quite shed them until he got in.
And he would be at his desk writing, and I would need to tell him something, and I would go down, and I would walk right up to his desk, making no effort whatsoever to be quiet. And I would get, you know, say 18 inches away and say, Jim. And he was so in it, and it always made me feel guilty because he was so in it, and I scared him out of it. I was like,
Well, I did buy one of those fish on the wall that you can make.
Billy Bass.
Billy Bass.
Somebody disassembled it very quickly.
What it was, he put it at the bottom of the stairs. Jim worked downstairs, I worked upstairs, and Alan worked upstairs.
So it would have been early morning. I thought it was a good idea.
Well, no, we couldn't go get a drink without Billy Bass singing down by the river. And so we were trying to climb up and down the stairs without setting him off. It basically was impossible. And finally I said, Jim, we've got to turn him off. And Jim said, okay.
But I think he still hangs it.
Not now.
No.
He's gone to some.
He's gone to my family's lake house.
Now, in my own writing experience, I've learned that, you know, there are those magical times where you after a little bit of warm up, wherever you're able to sit down and you are lost in the story, like you were saying, Maria, and you just, you can tell he's flowing in the stream of the wheel of time. I can imagine that. I've also learned from my own experience that there are times when you're sitting there and Facebook calls. Now, we didn't have Facebook back then, or whatever, but other than writing, what were some of his distractions from writing? What were his, like, did he have anything that kept him from writing when he should have been writing?
Well, he didn't have a typewriter anymore, so he couldn't clean the keys. Instead, he would optimize the hard disk.
And there was something else he would do. When he was trying, you know, he had something going in the back of his mind and he was waiting on it. There was a solitaire system called Pretty Good Solitaire, and it was hundreds of games. And he would, if I remember correctly, he played double Canfield because he didn't really have to think about it, just clicking on the cards, and his brain could be going through, and finally it'd be like, and he'd shut down the Canfield and get back to it.
And the other thing is he subscribed to, I think, the New York Times and Wall Street Journal, and routinely went to other online magazines and papers. And we'd come in the morning, he'd like to, despite writing at the computer, he'd love to read hard copy, as most of us do. He got an industrial-sized printer that required 20,000 copies a month just to keep maintained. And we'd find a stack like this of articles that he had printed out the night before. So at some point, that had to be a waste of time.
And he insisted on keeping those hard copies. He didn't trust the net. The information will vanish.
And not only that, I've been recently cleaning out the office, and there was one file cabinet of things like that he'd saved. He had printed out the entire Microsoft license agreement. Oh, God.
The only one in history to have read all the way
As a
through.
sidebar,
And retained it.
As a sidebar, I'll tell one on Harrison though, because he liked to collect little widgets and things, little whirly-gigs, little things that would jump up and down, whatever. And I sidebarred with her, I said, do you like these? And she said, I see HPS. And I went, after years of hearing, I see HPS, I said, what is that? She said, it could have been stewardesses.
It could have been what?
Stewardesses.
And I want to tell Maria. If it's okay. Maria used to have a rabbit named Kara, and she had brought it in for her son's show and tell. She brought it in for strangled. There, thank you. I feel it under my foot. She had brought the rabbit into town for her son's show and tell, and then the rabbit had to come back to the office. And Maria brought rabbit in to introduce, was it a him or her? Him. To Jenna, who said, oh, something like, I love rabbit stew. And I haven't had any rabbit stew since I was 20, and it's so good with mushrooms and carrots, or whatever it was, and Maria's was looking at it. And she said, if you touch one hair on this rabbit's head, I will make it so that you can never find anything in this office. And you know I can do it.
That was kind of funny more to him because he called me spinally challenged because I didn't say no to people. Like, there was stuff at church, you know, I really didn't want to do, but I always ended up doing it anyway. And he's like, you're spinally challenged. You need to learn to say no. So I finally said no, and it was to him. He was kind of impressed.
If you've seen any photos of the office, standing over on the side, hanging, is a skeleton. Interesting. And usually wearing a hat, by the way. But you want to tell the story of buying the skeleton?
Yeah, there's a shop in New York that I bet you would all love. It's called Maxilla and Mandible. As far as I know, it's still there, very near the Museum of Natural History. And it sells bones and shells and stuff like that. And he began eyeing a skeleton, and he said, is that real? And the proprietor said, yes, it is. The one over here is plastic, but that's a real one. And she said, oh, how much is that? And he began sort of fondling the real one. I said, and something rose up in me, and I said, Jenna, he said, yeah. I said, if you bring that home, I will bury it. I strongly recommend you get the plastic one. So he did. But I really felt that. Those poor bones, I think they've been in a medical school. I don't know where all they've been, but I thought it was time they had a rest.
They're inside in your garden.
Yeah.
Alan, you've shared with me in the past that I killed it.
You can project.
There's one sitting there. There's one sitting right there. You can pick it up.
It's not working either. Oh, maybe there's a power button.
There's a
This
button.
one's working, yeah.
That's, oh, there you go. Okay, got to read that. Alan, you have told me in the past that Robert Jordan loved to push all the buttons on the computer. If there was a button to push, an option to change, a setting to tweak, he would do that. As his IT support person, do you have any stories related to the wrong button that he pushed?
They were all wrong. Which is why I wound up building him, 3 computers in my time there? No, he had an amazing organizational mind, the mind of an engineer. But somehow when computers came along, it didn't exactly translate 100% into that mode. And no, I don't know, do you remember a story I told about that specifically?
No, I don't remember, but it doesn't surprise me that he was fascinated with defragging his hard drive, you know?
Yeah, love to defrag. I mean, I keep coming back to when Hunter Wentworth did a film about Jim shortly after his death. And I remember him asking me, what was Jim like as a person? And I kind of pounded on the table. I said, the man is Jupiter. And anyone who knows mythology or astrology even, the man had the personality of Jove, even though his sun sign was Libra, which is a very different characteristic. Jupiter is a man who grabs life in huge gulps. If one does perfectly fine, why not do 6 or 12? And you saw it in so many aspects of his life. Not only his terrific organizational ability, his love for adventure. Luck comes with that planet. This is a very prominent planet in astrology and Jim's chart, by the way. Any of you who don't believe in astrology, grow up. This is a fantasy convention. But astrologically, I saw Jupiter before even seeing his chart being very strong in that. Luck comes in a lot with people with strong Jupiters, as Jim had. And it's not just luck out of the blue. It's a luck based in tremendous self-confidence that things will always be all right. And keep thinking about that story. As a door gunner in Vietnam, there is that story when a mortar round is coming toward his helicopter, and everyone's ducking, and most people would have died under circumstances like that. Jim said, what the hell? He started shooting at the mortar and hit it in midair, so it never touched the helicopter. And that kind of luck followed him through. But yeah, with computers, he just kind of overdid it as well. He probably defragged it to death. And we had several of those. I do remember one thing though, Jason, I remember at his funeral, you came into the office for the first time and sat down, and I saw the love in your eyes, the respect. You sat in his chair and just kind of melted and looking dewy-eyed at this computer that sat in front, thinking to yourself and saying out loud, my gosh, this is the computer that created these stories. And I didn't have the heart to tell him at the time. This was a cheap server computer I built so Jim could operate in the house. His computer. And he never touched this computer.
10 years later, I never knew you just broke my heart.
Didn't you write about that in your thing about going to the funeral on Dragon Mount? You wrote about it, didn't you?
What's that?
You wrote about it on Dragon Mount.
I did. You want to finish the story here? There's
I
another.
think that's enough.
Okay. So I'm sitting here at this computer, and I crack my neck a little bit, and I put my hands up on the keyboard, and just kind of resting there, on the home keys, and I just type like, I was going to type the Wheel of Time or so. Just going to type it out. And I do that, and I hear this, boop. and like the computer comes awake, but it startled me so much. I was like, I wasn't supposed to be in there, I don't think, or I don't know. I jumped out of there. It was as if someone had come up and like goosed me from behind or something. But it like freaked me out. I'm like, oh my god! It's knowing my life at the DragonCon server, and especially that week, I probably crashed the server. So there you go.
The first computer was an Apple II. Nobody else in the universe bought an Apple II. There proved to be almost no software developed for it for that very reason. Some guy had told him when he bought it, well, this is for home use. This has 200K. You don't need that much. But with that, it had floppy disks. And it came in for actually midday dinner, which he did take time to do in those days. He said, I am formatting a floppy disk. I said, did the disk like it?
Wilson, you last time I was out of the house, you elaborated on a story from it. I'd love for you if you could share a little bit with everyone here. We know that in Hurricane Hugo, 1988, 89. In the dedication to book 2, the Great Hunt, Jim dedicates this book to
really a ton of people.
Well, do you remember the names? Or we're going to tell the story about who these people were.
Gosh, I mean, somebody please pull out the Great Hunt because the dedication is about that long. Pretty much anybody who came by and helped out.
There was a story about some strangers or something.
Well, there was the Tennessee boys.
Tell us the story of the Tennessee
Well,
boys. I don't know who they were.
Okay, any Yankees in the building? Hello. Okay, I married one, so it's okay. All right, I married a Long Islander and I brought her down here. She knows what grits are now. Yeah, right. She doesn't like them, but she can cook mean grits. Okay, but one of the things on the 10 top things of a Yankee when you're moving south is if you break down on the side of the road, don't panic. In 10 minutes, a group of boys with a pickup truck will come along and they're there to help you. Well, after Hugo, Charleston was a mess. Okay, in the coffee collection for you guys, I'll repeat a little bit. But literally the eye of the storm blew over the top of their home, and Harriet and Jim and Aunt Eva, Jim's mom, were huddled under the dining room table when the house was shaking with 150-mile-an-hour winds. And when I say 150 miles an hour, when the eye of a storm goes over you, the fiercest winds are right at the eye wall. Okay, so literally they took the beating. And for about 10 to 15 minutes afterwards, you're in dead calm. So Jim ran around the house to take an inventory of what was going on. Is it gonna last? Because we've still got another half of the storm coming at us. And he ran upstairs it took you once, right? And opened the door to the attic, and there was a dormer there. Emphasis on the word was, because it was gone. He was now looking at the stars, and he closed the door and he said, nothing I can do about that at this point. But anyway, so 2 weeks following the storm, after we dug ourselves out of, I live in Charlotte, and we got hit fairly hard. And he got angry at me that he didn't realize how hard we'd gotten hit, and that we had showed up with building supplies and a generator and this and that and the other to help out with family. And our daughter Marissa, who's somewhere around here now, at 41, she was 10 then, helping haul stuff. But we were at this point on John's Island, which is just outside of Charleston, trying to dig my aunt out, Jim's mom. And there were several pine trees. If you've been in the South, the reason the Brits wanted the South was because those tall pine trees made pretty good masts for ships, right? Tall, straight, not many knots in them and all that. Well, 4 or 5 of those were right across the top of Aunt Eva's home. And we couldn't do much about that. But the Tennessee boys drove down the road in their pickup truck with their chainsaws and those trees disappeared, you know. So, don't have all their names, but they're listed as the Tennessee Village Blues.
And,
Yeah.
a writer named Al Dempsey, who lived in Colorado, had kind of a friend in the governor of Colorado, and he got us a little troop of loggers. And they came to Charleston, and they were being traveled, they were being carried by the police in a paddy wagon. But I got religion and said, oh, Al, we can't put them to work in our yard. I will tell you, as an aside, it took us 6 weeks to get to the garage. It looked like a salad bowl, or as Jim liked to say, 60 feet of carpet barn pattern. Anyway, I said, no, the public need is too great. I was thinking of those little old people in their humble houses at the end of dirt roads. So we gave them to the city, and they put them to work in a Hansen park. Cutting up, well, they were huge oak trees, and they were very good at being able to clean them up. So we're glad that. And of the people who were in that dedication, one was my sister, and she liked to use her full name, which was Louisa Chivis Papa Raoul. And of course, the typesetter had no clue, so it was Louisa Chivis, comma. Raoul. But your work was wonderful, person. It was just great. And besides, you were sane, or relatively, in those days.
Things change.
I've had the real privilege of having visited the house in Charleston several times, and I always feel, you always make me feel like I have family coming home there, and I feel so wonderful. And every time I'm there, and it's got, as you would imagine, it's as cool as you would imagine as hanging out in Robert Jordan's old house. It's as cool as you think, and maybe more so. And
You do know Jim's feelings.
it is. I remember, and this is where
I think it's a steady.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that too. It has the feel of one. I can see that.
When did anybody here put together the fact that Charleston is a peninsula and there are 2 rivers on either side of it?
Just now.
The Ashley and the Cooper. So when he said the 2 rivers, he was talking about all.
Every time I have come to the house and had an opportunity to sit down, and I've been there when there's been a lot of people in the crowd, I've been there when there's just like, the 3 of us right here. But every time I come, within a little bit of time, the name John Ford comes up, and the influence that he had on Jim as a writer and as a friend. Can you, for those who don't know, can you kind of speak a little bit about who John Ford was and the impact he had on Jim?
Who knows his name? John M. Ford.
A couple.
He won the World Fantasy Award, I think it was for short fiction, for a long poem called Winter Solstice, Camelot Station. And it's about everybody coming home by train to King Arthur's Camelot. It's perfectly wonderful. And it's the only poem, as far as I know, that has ever won that way. He also won the Fantasy Award for his novel, I think The Dragon Waited.
Yes.
Yes, which was, the dragon in that case was war, but it's a very good book. And Mike, as he was called, you might be amused, John M. Ford, the writer, loved to write scenarios for computer games, but he was always under contract for some book that wasn't quite delivered. So he wrote for games as Michael J. Dodge. And he would come often. He lived in Minneapolis, so he'd come down in the winter. sometimes spend weeks. He was just a wonderful friend and companion. But it was a bad thing looking at television with the pair of them, because in the first 5 minutes, one or the other would say, "Joe done it," and they were always right. They knew so much about story that they could, it wasn't any fun sitting there.
And they were, sometimes they would be sitting talking and I would walk through the room and it would be almost like they were speaking a different language. They were both so incredibly bright and they didn't have to
Talk down.
get, you know, they could say a small phrase and the other one, "Oh, yes," and it was just, it was amazing. And one time Mike was visiting and he came back to my office for something and I was working at night then for some reason. And he was back in my office and something got him talking about Grand Theft Auto. I'm not a gamer, I've never been a gamer. By the time he was finished, I was ready to go out and buy it. He was just so incredible.
Jim was truly an amazing, an anomaly. I mean, he was what a brain and what an ability to retain. And you heard at the coffee class, but at the height of his writing, he was reading a book a day. Okay. And the pat on the back for Mike is, Jim said, "I love to have him around, he stretches me. And I read fast and I retain a lot, but I don't hold a candle to Mike."
Would be at my desk, reading something, and manuscript, imagine pages, turning pages as I went. There was a letter I wanted him to read, and it was a 4-page, single-spaced letter, and I said, "Read that, Mike, and tell me what you think." And he said, "Yeah," and I said, "No, I want you to read it." He said, "I just did." And he did. It wasn't a lie. I've never seen reading that fast.
And this was a man who never even finished high school, did he? He ran away
Yes,
from
he
home
did.
at 16?
At 16, he did run away from home, but it was to the University of Indiana.
As I said.
Because they had
No,
a mainframe.
no one from Indiana, you're right.
They had a mainframe that he liked the looks of a lot. And he wrote the only Star Trek novel that has the Klingons as, from the Klingon point of view. And he was an honorary Klingon.
And wasn't the other one like a musical, How Much for Just
Yes.
the Planet?
Yeah.
Yes, and then Paramount really cracked down on the series, so they couldn't do any
They took his
comedies.
contract away. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there would never be another Star Trek comedy, because of course being a musical, it was a comedy too.
Okay, Terez, how much time do we have on this panel?
I don't know.
Do we have till 3:30?
Yes, till 3:30.
Okay, we have 15 minutes. Let's open up for some questions out of the audience. Raise your hand if anyone got a question for the panel up here. Yes, right. I'll bring you the mic.
Oh, Wilson, you said to ask you about Top Tiger. Could you tell what you mean by that?
Well, okay, in the Tarvalon meeting last night, which is always fun, I just love the toast and there's some stuff going on there that I'm not sure of, okay? But, and a little frightening, but that's all right. And each of us are asked to make a toast to the group, the people, or whatever. And I raised my toast to someone that, or to Jim, using a name that you've never heard before, and it was Top Tiger. It was the call sign of his unit in Vietnam. Actually, it was part of his email address.
Yes.
I told Harriet this the other day. You know how some people steal your email addresses or friends of yours, and you get these emails that say, "You might be interested in this"? Well, this past week, I got an email from Jim.
So did
I got an email from Jim that said, "You might be interested in this." And for a moment, I thought about opening it. And I'm sure when I get to heaven, he's gonna say, "I sent you an email and you didn't open it."
I was trying to make you rich with the Nigerian prince money. That's it right here.
What would, this is to any of you, what would Jim be thinking about the TV show? What would he say? How would
Why
you
don't
feel
they get
about
on the stick and do it?
Other questions? We have Team Jordan up here.
We're just too nervous.
Yes, sir.
Was there any time during the process, I'm sure there were times whenever you guys had differing opinions on things, was there anything that was a really big one that was really a big problem, or maybe differing points of view on how a scene or a character should act or anything like that, where you guys had to work it out?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Take a
it was,
one-day one, or?
I honestly, at this point, can't remember what they were, but there would be times Harriet would call me up and say, you know, do you think this would really happen? And I would say, I'm not sure, you know, gotta do some research, and we'd get Alan in there and, you know, just basically talk it through until we decided how it worked.
Or that we would gang up on it.
Have an intervention?
There was one place that y'all may not be aware of, and I can't remember which book it was, but there was a patch in it that seemed to me kind of slow. And I said so to it. He said, it's just talking heads. Can you do something? And sure enough, a murder happens. I went back and put a murder in.
Thanks, Eric.
I don't remember who got dead. Yes, probably.
Was it Adelaus?
Question over here?
Other than Bela, who was the character that the three of you, who was the character that was killed that the three of you wished had?
Well, first of all, Harry, do you need to clarify the record on Bela?
She's alive.
Yeah.
She's alive, if you read your companion.
That's right, yeah. That's why I said other than Bela.
Mine is Roland. I liked Roland. I mean, he was sort of creeping on Bayou, but he, you know, was keeping other people from assaulting her. And when I got to the part where he and Herman met so violently, I went running down. I seriously went running down. I was like, Jim, you killed Roland. He looked at me and said, he was toast from the start.
I can't think of anybody. I just thought it was too good of a story.
Unless it's Adomanis, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Poor Adomanis.
Adomanis.
Yeah,
How many people know who
Adomanis
Adomanis is?
cool.
Yeah, but still, nobody knows him. He was Kareed's right-hand man from the mountains of Shancheng. And it was such a teary moment that Brandon actually left out his death on the battlefield. But if it wasn't for his dietary peculiarities, he would still be alive today. Because it says in the companion that he saw a horde of rats coming toward him. And that was Adomanis' favorite meat. And he went to start skewering, and he was taken over by a horde of rats. A terrible way to go on a battlefield. If any of you have been there.
There's a wonderful scene where he's in a room with Terez and Adomanis squatting down over a range of clothes. And he had many characteristics in common with our yard man.
Are we gonna get on Kelly? Okay.
Kelly was kind of the model for Adomanis.
I thought Alan was the yard
He
man.
was the efficient and creepy.
Yes.
There's a question over here first. I'll come back to you. Yes, Lucia.
I was very, very fascinated with the Baron reveal at the very end. I did not see that coming. Was
Nobody
that
did.
always planned?
No.
seriously, he asked me to straighten out his notes pretty early on, and the first file he gave me was, well, he had like 3 or 4 isodie files, and he wanted me to consolidate them into one, and he gave it to me, and the first thing I did, signed Aaron. But I couldn't talk about it for years. Wow. But it
I've
was
always
fun.
wanted her owl.
Yeah.
Instead, you have her trellis.
Yes, we're here.
I don't know how much you can answer, but I'm just curious, like even myself, I've always assumed the TV show would follow the timeline of the book series, but I don't know how free the contract is. Could they do anything they wanted in the world? Like could they say, hey, let's focus on Sean Chen and do something totally different?
Yes, they could. The one thing, the thing they can't do, and I'm sure in many ways they could, but I think only fools would do it, if they sat down to make a triple X rated, I could sue them and probably win, because that would damage the underlying property. They cannot do anything that damages the underlying books. So I can't think, I mean, that's the one thing that occurred to me. I don't see why they would jump onto the idea. Although they're great.
And Ray, our showrunner, is a Wheel of Time fan, because he put a picture on Twitter of his very worn Eye of the World.
Yeah, freaked everybody out.
It's great.
Just on that note with regarding, Rafe being online, there was, I guess we all know that the actor who plays Superman in the Justice League movies, help me out with the name, I'm blanking. Henry Cavill is a big Wheel of Time fan. He's a big Brandon Sanderson Stormlight fan. And he's probably a little too old to play Rantu, but he there's something he can probably do. But also, so also someone else, there was another Superman, Brandon Routh, who played Superman in a previous 2006 movie. He's also a big Wheel of Time fan, and he volunteered on Twitter that this year, I will play Rand if you give me red hair. So a little over too. Yes, purple hair, a purple shirt.
Hi. So I've read before that Robert Jordan was both like a mathematician and a physicist. What kind of effect did that have in his personal life?
Well, as somebody said, I think it was Alan, he had a wonderful sense of organization, but I almost burst out laughing because he was one of the messiest human beings you ever heard to meet. But in the books, he certainly was a master organizer and a voice of reason before he sat down to write. In his personal life, it wasn't very evident. It was a lot of fun.
Well, but in that regard, he was a manager of the books, and he signed deals with distributors outside the U.S. Correct? And knew volume. I mean, he could quote you volume and gross how many had been sold here and there.
Well, yeah, but I have to blow my own horn on that. So I was the original editorial director of Tor Books and had worked in publishing for 30 years before Jim and I met. So I knew what a good contract was and what a bad contract was. And I read all of them, growled on.
Just a personal caveat onto that same question is, one time I read it in some interview that stated, I don't know which one over the years, but I remember that Jim had said that his time, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my understanding, is that he said that in his time as a physicist, he found that the deeper he went with the physics, the more evidence of God that he found.
There's a book on physics called The Dancing Wu-Li Masters. It came out about 20 years ago, and he thought that was very cool about physics.
Have you read any of his other work? Has anybody read his other works? Okay. How about his Louis L'Amour kind of Western?
Yeah.
Okay. Harriet, how long did it take him to write the Western?
10 days. There wasn't much sleep in there, but it was 10 days.
Wow. Right here in front, actually, right here in front.
One of my absolute favorite, and what I think is most beautiful about the books are actually the poetry, the prophecies of the dragon, and even the lyrics to some of the songs. So I was wondering if there was any kind of stories you guys have about that, or any sources of inspiration, especially for the prophecies of the dragon. I just think they're beautiful.
Well, he was raised Baptist, and in the Baptist Sunday school system, study on the Bible is called sword drill. And you have to tell, if somebody says John 3:16, the teacher says John 3:16, raise your hand and say what John 3:16 says, or vice versa. But of course they all know what John 3:16 is, so they don't do that. And he said he won sword drill 3 or 4 times, so he had 3 or 4 Bibles. But he actually did read the Bible. And before he did the Wheel of Time and the prophecies, he'd written 7 Conans. The Conan character was created in the 20s by Robert Howard, who killed himself in the early 30s on the day his mother died. Figure that. But actually, Jim ended up writing 7 Conans, I'm sure. And he figured out very early that Robert Howard read some of the King James Version before writing any Conan to pick up the rhythms and the flowery language of the King James Version. So he did the same. And he had all that stuff floating around in his Bible. I'm sure he got out his Bible and he was going to write some prophecy.
And he wrote poetry, right?
Yes, he did. He did.
Wasn't he a theater critic for so long?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
And there was a male dancer in what he was reviewing. And I said, why don't you just say he leapt around that stage like a hop toad? But he didn't.
So we have one more minute here.
Well, interesting coincidence, and I'm not sure we believe in coincidences, but after his death, he had purchased a piece of property near the College of Charleston that Harriet wanted to get rid of for various reasons. And so a family friend in the real estate business helped, and the realtor representing the buyer of the property, his name was Robert Jordan. Yeah, hairs on the back of my neck just went up.
I still see signs around town for properties for rent by Robert Jordan every time I'm driving by. I posted pictures of it because it just tickles me.
One of my relatives had a friend who was married to a man named Robert Jordan, and they lived actually in, I think, North Charleston, and they would get phone calls. People wanting to talk about the Wheel of Time.
Just send them over to Dragon Mountain or Fairyland.
In that vein, Jim did like Robert Jordan, and all of the pen names that he used were taken from J.O.R., James Oliver Rigney. There's a James Oliver Rigney III. He's studying his master's degree right now in music in Valencia, Spain. My youngest is over there partying with him right now. So all of them were based on that, and he really thought that his life's work was something else.
Yeah, he did. He said he was saving his own name to actually change. First, it was going to be a new and better history of South Carolina. And then after a while, it morphed into his Vietnam novel. And then which one was it? Finally said there was a Vietnam novel that said, I think the things they carried, is that right?
Yes.
That said everything he wanted to say.
All right, well, we are a few minutes over. Thank you for being on here and for sharing that portion of enjoy the rest of the con. And shameless plug, Dragonmouth 20th birthday party tonight, 10 p.m., room 1112. Be there. We're having a Wheel of Time spelling bee and food and alcohol and other drinks.